Welcome to the Gastro Girl podcast. We bring together patients, experts, and health advocates who are all here to help you optimize your health. Here's your host, Jacqueline Gollin.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gastro Girl podcast. I'm Jacqueline Gollin, and today we're diving into a powerful mind-gut approach for living better with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. My guest today is the amazing Dr. Ali Navidi. He's a licensed clinical psychologist, co-founder of GI Psychology, and an expert who's been helping patients with GI disorders for over a decade. Now, managing IBD isn't just about controlling inflammation. It's about understanding the powerful connection between the mind and the gut. And research shows that addressing stress, emotions, and mental well-being can be just as important as medication in improving outcomes. That's why Dr. Navidi will share details about a groundbreaking new initiative in collaboration with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. It's called the IBD Therapy Group. This is an 8-week nationwide virtual program, again, developed in partnership with the ACG, the American College of Gastroenterology, and the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. Welcome, Dr. Navidi. It's so great to have you on the show again and to see you again. It's been a while, but always it's such a pleasure to have you on. And we look forward to getting into this really important discussion today.
Yeah, Jackie, it's great to talk with you again. It's great for me to see you continuing the struggle, doing the good work of getting good information out there. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Oh, you're so welcome. We're going to begin by first setting the groundwork for this discussion, understanding the brain-gut connection. Dr. Navidi, what is the brain-gut connection and how does it impact Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, otherwise known as collectively IBD?
Yeah, so I think when we're just talking about disorders of gut-brain interaction, it's almost a simpler discussion. When we're talking about IBD, it becomes a little more complicated and maybe more interesting because we're not even just talking about the brain-gut connection. We're talking about this whole mouthful of a field, which is called psychoneuroimmunology. So it's the idea. Yeah, it's the idea that what goes on in the brain and the mind can affect our nervous system, can affect our immune system. Because, as we know, IBD is an autoimmune condition. And one of the things that, and I know I'm like way jumping ahead, but one of the things that got me wanting to create the IBD group that we created was the fact that there's this really cool research showing that some of these behavioral health interventions can directly reduce inflammation and autoimmune responses. It can affect flares and reduce the frequency and the duration of flares. So it's like, okay, we gotta make this stuff available.
No, I love this because typically when we talk about disorders of the brain-gut connection, it's usually people always think about IBS, inflammatory irritable bowel syndrome, bloating, gas, like constipation, those issues. So it's really great that you can apply the learnings and the research to inflammatory bowel diseases because those patients really struggle too. They have a lot of the same struggles of having a chronic GI disorder. But the inflammation part is really exciting to kind of understand how that works and how a program like the one we're going to talk about can really help them.
Yeah, and you're right. All the things we normally talk about with the brain gut, they apply to the IBD patient as well. So because as you know, there's a tremendous overlap. There's a lot of IBD patients, about 60%, that also have disorders of gut-brain interaction. So then, of course, those same treatments that work through the brain gut to reduce those symptoms. And they're especially frustrating for IBD patients because those are the symptoms that are occurring when all your lab tests are clear. When your lab tests are saying that the medicine is working and you should be feeling fine, but you're not, that's usually the disorder of gut-brain interaction that's in addition to the IBD.
No, that's interesting. And you have such a fascinating background, and I want to call that out. Can you share a little bit about your journey to get where you are with your the group that you founded, the GI Psychology Group. I think this is fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started out just as a generalist, and I just loved helping people, and I loved using cognitive behavioral therapy, and I loved using clinical hypnosis as tools, and I used them everywhere I could. And slowly, I began to learn that these tools also were really effective for GI problems, and so I started helping GI patients, and there was so much need for it that suddenly I found myself that was like 80% of my practice, and this is just me in solo practice.
Wow.
And so at that point, I reached this point where it's like, okay, I have no one to refer to in this big DC metro area, and this is ridiculous. And so myself and another psychologist, we got together and we started GI Psychology with the mission of bringing these really cool behavioral treatments, making them available like as widely as we could. And so now we've got this great group, highly trained clinicians. We can see patients in all 50 states by telehealth.
That's wonderful.
And we're partnering with all these really, these great organizations to try to make these treatments available to their members. And the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation is one of those organizations.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. And I know that you and your team have been working on this a long time with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, as well as the ACG, American College of Gastroenterology. Yeah. So it's the IBD Therapy Group, and this is what you're launching. You're launching it this summer, this month, and it's going to start August 14th. So we really want to get people excited about this and understand, why they should sign up. This is an amazing opportunity. If you or a loved one have either Crohn's or colitis, this is an amazing opportunity. And, a lot of what you said between the cognitive behavioral therapy and also clinical hypnosis, that is such a powerful modality for patients, any patient, right? Really, who has a chronic illness. Could you explain how that applies to IBD patients and what they could expect with this?
Yeah, I was so excited to make this group because I got to really look at all the research and see, okay, what does the research show that we can do for IBD patients? Like, what is possible here? And so we got to see that there's research about reducing the frequency of flares, the length of the flares, reducing inflammatory markers, but also really improving quality of life and other factors. So seeing all that research, we got to then from the ground up build an 8-week program that integrates all the best practices in CBT and clinical hypnosis and put it all together into this awesome group. Clearly, I'm excited about it.
Yeah. I know. I want to sign up right now. I don't have IBD, but I think I could benefit.
Well, we actually ran a little test. We have a clinician who has IBD herself, and she, very kindly volunteered to give it a shot. And it just happened to be a situation where she was going through a flare, and she talked about how it just was so helpful for her to use the skills from the group. So I'm excited for a broader audience to start learning these skills.
Okay, so let's walk us through the 8-week program. Like, what can patients expect?
Yeah. So what they can expect is that there's going to be, in every session, there's going to be some psychoeducation. There's going to be stuff to learn. And then a group discussion around that. We're going to answer questions. We're going to really figure things out. You're going to hear other people's thoughts. And then every session, we're going to have a hypnosis session that's going to reinforce whatever it is that we're learning. So, and that's what the research shows works the best, is when we can integrate cognitive behavioral therapy and hypnosis together kind of seamlessly, you get the best results. And then they're going to get a recording of that, and they can practice and reinforce all those things between that session and then the next one in like a week.
And they could do this at home, right? You're giving them tools, a toolkit almost.
Yeah. And then they're going to have all the recordings that they can use however long they want to use them. And we're talking about helping them to be more resilient to stress, helping reduce anxiety, reduction of inflammation flares, reducing that visceral hypersensitivity that can occur, that can really cause pain and discomfort. So we're trying to kind of hit all the important things in this 8-week group.
Now let's talk a little bit about clinical hypnosis. Is this the same thing when we hear gut-directed hypnotherapy? It's not the hypnosis where they, you walk around like a chicken and start singing like some song that you don't know how you know. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is? We want patients to be aware of what kind of hypnosis we're talking about here.
Yeah. And hey, to be fair, that kind of hypnosis is fun. It makes for like a good movie or, a stage show. And if we just put it all in the category of entertainment hypnosis, I think we're good. And then what's left over is you can either call it gut-directed hypnotherapy or you can call it clinical hypnosis. Either way, we have a lot of years of research, many studies showing that it can really help people. And what is it actually?
What is it actually?
Yeah. It's a lot simpler, I think, than people think. It's just deliberately teaching people how to go into this state of consciousness called trance. And you go into trance throughout the day. I go into trance throughout the day. The example I always give is like driving to my office. I'm listening to my recorded book, and then suddenly I'm there, right? I've got 2 teenagers, and they're always in trance when I'm trying to talk to them about something important.
Of course.
So trance is always happening. So it's not actually that hard to teach people how to access that state of consciousness. And it turns out that when they're in that state of consciousness, our mind is much more flexible. We have a greater mind-body connection. We're able to control pain better. All these kind of useful things can happen when we're in trance that we normally don't have access to. And I almost think of it as it's all learning self-hypnosis, because self-hypnosis is really the key, is almost our birthright as humans. And it's a pity that more people don't get to learn this, that don't have tools to like calm themselves down whenever they need to, or to reduce pain when they're feeling uncomfortable. Like most people don't have those skills, and people who go through the group are going to learn them.
That's really important because we see so many of these patients that are struggling with pain. They're struggling with, distress, anxiety, and to be able to understand how hypnosis can work for them. It's almost like it's a deep state of relaxation, right? You're really relaxed. You're clearing your mind, but you're also learning something else. Is that true? You're learning something else?
And the key thing is you're always in control.
That's a good point.
I've had so many patients tell me after their first hypnosis session, oh my gosh, I can't remember the last time I've ever been that relaxed.
Right.
It lets you access these profound states of relaxation. You get to this peaceful place where you can really make changes in your thinking or in your kind of habitual way that you deal with your body sensations, right? It's a wonderful tool. And I just love the idea also that by doing this group, more people are going to learn how to use it to help their chronic health issues.
And what's fascinating about this group too is you're combining cognitive behavioral therapy with this clinical hypnosis. How does that work? I remember working on cognitive behavioral therapy years ago when I was having a lot of panic attacks. I was afraid to fly after 9/11, and it was really like hard. And I went and I did cognitive behavioral therapy, and it was so helpful because you're able to talk yourself through the rationale. Like, you're not having a heart attack. The plane is going to move, the rationale. And then after that, I was so much better on flights, even to this day. Like it was really important to learn that. Now, how do you apply that to someone with a chronic illness?
Yeah. And it's interesting because when you look at cognitive behavioral therapy, most people aren't terribly aware of their own thoughts. They're often aware that they're getting anxious, and then they're not maybe sure even why. And so one of the first things cognitive behavioral therapy teaches you is to be more aware of your thoughts and then to get this, what we call cognitive distance from your thoughts. So thoughts are not facts. They're just mental phenomena, and we can view them more objectively. And then once you have that distance, then you can say to yourself, okay, what makes a little bit more sense? Does it make sense that this is definitely going to be the plane that's going to crash into the mountain? Or maybe that this is going to be safe and that the little noise I'm hearing outside is a normal noise that all planes make, right?
That's exactly what it was like. And even now, I'm like, it's just like the plane is in an ocean, only it's in the clouds. And of course it's going to move and you're fine.
Right. So what it's done is it's taught you to identify those thoughts that were creating that tremendous anxiety, then to interrupt that cycle by challenging them and putting more adaptive, useful thoughts in their place. But just by doing that, you were able to get over this intense level of panic just by changing the pattern of your thinking. And we do the same thing with our IBD therapy group, because we all have these unconscious thinking patterns that contribute to our levels of stress. And we know, and IBD patients are told, don't get stressed out, avoid stress. But how are people going to avoid stress, especially if they don't even know the thoughts that are causing their stress? So that's one of the things we help those patients with.
So let's have an example. A lot of patients with IBD worry about bowel urgency, having to run to a bathroom, or they're worried about maybe they're starting a new treatment and they're worried if it's going to work and stopping something else, or maybe they have trauma from going, for these constant medical procedures. How can we apply this, what we're going to learn in the group, to these kinds of situations?
Yeah. So a classic example would be, let's say somebody has, they're going to go and visit some friends, right? And they gotta drive there. And so before the trip, they're kind of scanning their gut in an anxious way, right? They're like, oh, okay, I don't know. I don't like the way this feels. This isn't good. And then when they notice something, then that anxiety that they feel shoots down into their gut, and it actually causes more rumbling or more kind of clenching. And then they're start catastrophizing. Then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to, be at my friend's house, and I'm going to, be in the bathroom making all kinds of noises, and everybody's going to hear me, and this is going to be so embarrassing, or I'm going to need to pull over on the side of the road when I'm driving, or, like their mind starts racing and coming up with all these worst case scenarios. Right. And the thing is, they're not necessarily super aware that their brain is doing it because it's doing it really fast. But what they are aware of is they don't feel good about going to visit their friend, and they know that their stomach is getting increasingly upset. And like an example of how we'd use CBT is help them to identify those thoughts, to challenge them, to shift away from a pattern of avoidance, which is probably making things even worse. And then teach them skills and tools like self-hypnosis or challenging their thinking to interrupt those stress and anxiety cycles.
So good. This is so good. I'm so excited for people that are listening, that are thinking about taking this. I mean, this is so amazing that you've put this together. So let's talk about benefits and patient outcomes. I know you've been doing this in your practice for a number of years. So what sort of outcomes and results have you seen with your IBD patients?
Yeah, I think we chose these two modalities of treatment because they have the best research behind them, the best research in terms of outcomes, in terms of stress management, anxiety. And I already mentioned that there's, I would call it preliminary, but very exciting research around immune modulation. So reducing inflammation, reducing those inflammatory markers. Just in terms of kind of outcomes, I had a guy come in, 16-year-old.
Oh, wow.
He loved playing basketball, but he's like a little guy. And the reason he was little is he had IBD, and the only way he could control his vomiting was by taking high dose steroids.
Oh, wow.
And of course, you probably know, like, taking those kinds of steroids is going to interrupt his puberty. So he loved basketball, but he was a little guy, and he was a little guy because he wasn't going through puberty, because he was taking these steroids, but he needed the steroids in order to not vomit so much. So it was a tough situation. And then we went in and we introduced him to cognitive behavioral therapy. We introduced him to clinical hypnosis, and he did so well he just took to it like a fish in water, right? He loved hypnosis. It was so relaxing to him. And within probably, I want to say like 3 weeks, the vomiting had stopped. And he reacted quickly, and there were relapses along the way. But ultimately, every time he relapsed, we were able to get him back under control. He was able to get off those steroids, and he wasn't so short anymore. And he just did wonderfully. And it was that story. He really wanted to get the word out. So his story was published in The Atlantic in an article just about his journey learning these skills.
That's fantastic. I love this. So important. So I know everyone's probably like, how do I join? How do I join? So tell us more details about the program. It's 8 weeks, 75-minute sessions, starts October 14th. What else to patients? Is it virtual? What is it?
Yeah, it's all virtual. It's available all over the country. I want to say, I think it's $600 which is a pretty low price point. And then $600, and then they can submit to insurance for reimbursement, which on average is probably going to reimburse at least 50 to 60%.
That's great, because you have eight 75-minute sessions. Sessions are usually like 45 minutes, and it's a lot more than $600. So this is great. This is great news for patients.
And just going to gipsychology.com, there's a free phone consultation you can sign up for, and you can ask all the questions you like. And if you want to sign up right there, you can, and they'll get you into the next group.
That's fantastic. And then there's a number on here. We'll put everything in the description. Are there any key takeaways or anything that you'd like to share that we didn't cover for patients in this about the program?
I'd say one thing to know is, like, this is the first time that the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has done something like this. And I think they're doing it because they believe so strongly in making this available to their members. This is not something that's been available on a national scale ever before. And I think they believe in it enough that they're putting their weight behind it, because they just really want to make this available to help people.
Well, this is fantastic. I can't wait to have you on again, maybe with some patients that can tell us how they found the experience, and to encourage others to try it out. But this has been great. Don't forget this 8-week nationwide virtual program. It combines cognitive behavioral therapy and gut-directed hypnotherapy to reduce stress, anxiety, and inflammation, and all while building practical coping skills. It's offered in partnership with ACG and the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. And if you want to learn more, gipsychology.com/IBD group. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so more people living with IBD can get the help and support they deserve. Thank you, Dr. Navidi, for joining us today. It's always great to see you. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jackie.
Gastro Girl Podcast. For more information and resources, please visit gastrogirl.com. Do you have a question for Gastro Girl? Please email podcast@gastrogirl.com. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in the Gastro Girl podcast are not a substitute for medical advice from your healthcare professional. Please consult a licensed clinician in your state regarding all matters related to your health.